Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create an RDS instance using AWS console. Alright, so let us head over to our AWS console and start building this. So this is my AWS console. So this is the management console of AWS. So if you want to work on RDS, you can either go and search for RDS in the search bar and open this RDS in the new tab. So let me do that. Let me open RDS in the new tab. So this is my RDS management console. So right now, if you see, I have 0 out of 40 instances running. So maximum you can create 40 database instances in this account that you are seeing right now. I have 0. Okay, so this is how the management console of your RDS will look. Okay, so now let us go step by step. So we will need some of the things that needs to be configured before even creating your RDS database. Okay, so first things first, we need to create a subnet group. So subnet group as in this is where your RDS will be created. So if we are just going to specify what are the subnets which can RDS use to deploy RDS instance. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on subnets. Here if you see right now, I don't have any subnet groups, right? So let me go over and create a DB subnet group. Okay, so let me click on create subnet. You need to give a proper name. So let me give demo. So let me give demo RDS. Okay, so description also I'm going to copy the same and paste it here. VPC, so if you have your custom VPC, you can create it in a custom VPC, but if you do not have one, you can create it in a default VPC as well. So by default, if you see in my account, this is the only VPC that I have, so I will select the same thing. Next is availability zone, that will include your subnets, right? So whatever the subnets that you want to add, that will be inside your availability zone. So you need to select your availability zone first. So let me go ahead and select only A, B and C. So in my region, North Virginia, so we have 6 availability zones, but I only want first three availability zones. So I will select all of them. If you see, that is getting appeared here, right? So after selecting the availability zone, it will automatically appear whatever the subnets you have inside that availability zone, that will be displayed here. Right now if you see, these are the subnets that I have. So I will select in 1C, 1B and 1A. So these are the subnets that I have and it will appear here. Okay, after if you are okay with all these details, you can go ahead and click on create. So this will create your subnet group. Now we need to go ahead and create our RDS instance database itself. Okay, so to do that, in the left hand side, you see something called as databases. Go over there, and if you see right now, I do not have any databases. So let us start creating one. So let me click on create database. So this will ask you to choose a database creation method. So whether you want to go ahead and create using a standard one, or if you want to go with easy create. So basically, if you go with easy create, it will use recommended best practice configurations provided by AWS, and it will easily configure all the databases. But I just want you to go through all the things that are required while creating a database, because in production or in real time, we will be going with standard create. We will not be using easy create. Okay, so I'll select a standard create. And as I've shown you how to create MariaDB database on EC2 instance, so let us also create the similar MariaDB database on RDS itself. Okay, so let me select RDS. So you have different options. If you see, we have Aurora. We will be having a separate masterclass on Aurora database, so don't worry about that. It supports MySQL, it supports PostgreSQL, Oracle database, and it also supports Microsoft SQL Server, right? So right now I'll go with MariaDB, and the corresponding versions of the database that you select will be appearing here. If you see, it is automatically selecting the latest version of the database. But if you want to use the specific version, you can go ahead and do that. So let me go ahead with the latest one. Okay, so templates, it is very important. You need to choose the sample template to meet your use case. Basically, if you're trying to deploy it in production, go ahead and select production. So if you are just testing out in your environment, if you're trying to onboard RDS as a service to your organization, go ahead and test it first. For testing, go ahead and use dev or test. But if you are using free tier account, I would highly recommend you to go ahead and select free tier, because this will cost a lot. RDS is one of the costless service, so I would recommend you to go ahead and use a free tier. So costless as in you will be paying only for whatever you are using. But what I am trying to say is, if you go ahead and select production, and if you do not delete the RDS database, later on you will be billed for that, so you will incur a lot of cost. So that is the reason why I'm asking you to go with free tier. Okay, so we need to provide some settings here. So we need to provide the database identifier. So that means a type of name for your database instance. So it needs to understand, right? So it is asking for a database identifier. So let me say demo RDS database. Okay, so I'll just give this one. So this is just a meaningful name. Okay, so our demo RDS database. So the second thing is, it is asking for master username and password and other things. So I'll just say RDS user, all small letters, and password I will use the same password that I used in my EC2. So that is admin 1 2 3 4 5. So I don't want to remember too many passwords, so I'm going to use the same passwords here. Okay, so I'm using the same password. Let me confirm the same password here. Okay, so you need to provide at least 8 ASCII characters. Read those information before providing your password. Okay, so it is asking for database instance class. So whether you want to go with standard, that means M series, M class, memory optimized, which includes R and X classes, burstable classes, which includes T classes. We discussed about this in our theory part also. If you see, database can be optimized for db.m5, that is for standard. So this is for memory, and this is for burst use case, T3, right? So that is what we are also seeing here. If you want to go ahead and change it, by default you will get 2 vCPUs and 1 gigs of RAM. But if you want to change it, you go ahead and do that. I'll just go with 1 vCPU and 1 gigs of RAM, right? So I don't want any optimization there. So I'll just go with 1 vCPU and 1 gigs of RAM. Storage type. So as I already told you, it is going to use your EBS volume. So it is asking which type of storage type you want to use, whether you want to go and use GP2 or IOPS or IO or magnetic. So it is recommended to use GP2. So but if you are going with IOPS provisioning, only then select provisioned IOPS. I have not seen people using magnetic even while testing it out. But if you want to try that, you can go ahead and do that as well. But right now I'm going with general purpose SSD 2. Okay, allocated storage, by default it will give you 20 gigs of memory. Maximum you can use is 6144 gigs. Okay, so that is the maximum storage in gigabytes that you can get. Okay, the second thing is storage auto scaling. So if you want it provides dynamic scaling support for your database's storage based on your application needs. So if you want to enable that, you can do it. This comes with extra cost, so don't try to use it when you are testing it out. So as we are just testing, I'll just uncheck this one, but if you want to use it, you can go ahead and do that. Okay, so the next thing is availability and durability. So we have an option called multi-AZ deployment. I will be speaking about multi-AZ deployment in the coming lecture, so please wait until that. Okay, so right now I'm not going with any of this. Connectivity, so it is asking whether you want to connect your EC2 instance, whether you want to directly connect to your EC2 instance, or if you don't want, you can select don't connect to EC2 instance. Okay, so in the similar type, you have network type. So whether you want to use a dual stack mode, make sure to use your IPv6 also. If you select dual stack, it will also allocate IPv6 address as well. So if your organization is already making use of IPv6, you can select this one, but right now I'm okay with IPv6. And virtual private cloud, that is VPC. So choose the VPC that you want. The VPC defines the virtual networking environment for your database instance, so select the one that you want. Right now I only have this default VPC. I will select the same thing, but if you want to create new, you will have the option to do it here itself, right? So I would not do that. If you ask me, I will go ahead and create my VPC first, and then I will be creating this RDS. Okay, so that is one thing. Next is subnet group. If you remember, the very first thing that we did is to create the database subnet group. So we created a subnet group with the name demo RDS. So the database subnet group defines which subnet and IP ranges the database instance can use in the VPC that you selected, right? So basically we selected three subnets, that is US East 1A, 1B and 1C, right? So those things you can select here. And public access, whether you want this RDS database to be publicly accessible or you don't want to do that, you select no. So if you want, you can select yes. Okay, so next is VPC security group. So it is just a virtual firewall. So it basically VPC security group to use, you use that to allow access to your databases. So make sure that security group allows appropriate incoming traffic. So if you don't allow appropriate traffic inside the database, you will not be able to access your databases. So you need to make sure that you are allowing port, the MySQL or your MariaDB port should be open. I think that is 3306 port needs to be open. So I have already created a VPC security group with the name Linux SG. So if you remember, while creating EC2 instance also, I selected the same VPC security group, select the same thing. So I think, yeah, that got selected here. If you want to place this RDS instance into a specific availability zone, you can give that. But if you go ahead and give no preference, AWS will take their choice on where to place this RDS instance. So if you expand additional configuration, so if you see, this is the database port, so this is 3389. If you want to change it, you can do it. Okay, so if you want to use a specific port, you can do that in the advanced configuration. So database authentication, right now we are going with password authentication. So but if you want to access this database inside an EC2 instance, you can create an IAM role and access it, but right now we will go with password authentication. So that is what we gave there, right? So I'll select password authentication. So if you want to monitor this RDS, you can enable this one. So basically how it is working, so how different processor or threads are using your CPU utilization, memory metrics, all those things you can monitor. So just like we have detailed monitoring in EC2 instance, we also have enhanced monitoring in terms of RDS. If you want, you can go ahead and enable that also. This will come with extra cost. Okay, so I'm not going to do that. Let us expand additional configuration. So here if you see, it is asking, so if you want to create a database before you, when the setup is happening, when the instance is getting created, if you want to create an initial database, you can do that, right? So if you want to specify the initial database name, for example RDS DB, let's say RDS DB. So while this RDS instance is getting created, it will also create this particular database. Okay, so I will select that one. If you want, you can enable automated backups. So a parameter group is getting created, so by default this is the MariaDB version that is getting created there. And backup, as I already told, it will create a point in time snapshot for your database. If you want, you can enable that one, and you can provide the retention period. So if you enable this one and the retention period is set to 7 days, what happens, it will capture, or it will take a snapshot of your database, and it will retain that snapshot for 7 days. So that is one thing, you get an option in RDS. So if you want to go ahead with that, you can do that, or else you can disable that also. I'm going to disable that. So again, maintenance is there. You can specify the window for your maintenance. So if you want auto minor version upgrade to your databases, if you enable this one, automatically if there is any version upgrade on your minor version upgrades will be taken care by the AWS itself. So if you go ahead with that, you can choose a window. For example, if you want that to happen on every Monday, or you can specify whatever the day you want and start time, and what is the duration that you can provide for the maintenance. You can go ahead with that. If you go with no preference, they will select a window for you, and they will perform maintenance activity for yourself. Okay, so if you want, you can enable that one. If you don't want, you can uncheck that box. Okay, so deletion protection. So if you want if you want to protect the database from being deleted accidentally, so you can enable this one. If you enable this one, you cannot delete the database. Okay, so that is one option, you will get it. But make sure that while practicing, do not enable it until and unless you have to try working on this one. Next, it will display the estimated monthly cost. What will be your monthly cost? This is my free tier account, so I can run for some duration the RDS instance for free in my account. So that is what you are seeing here. So all the things will be displayed here in the estimated monthly cost. So after viewing all of this, you can click on create database. So this will start your database creation. So if you see, this is what the database name that we gave, identifier. And if you see, we are running MariaDB engine on this one, and we selected t2.micro. So the status is still creating. So it will take some time to create this database. So I will come back when the status is okay or it is available. If you see now, the database that we just created has been successfully created. It took quite a bit of time for my database to be created. Okay, so if you see, this is the identifier, and the status is also available. So let us see what are the details that we have for this particular database. Okay, so this is the database endpoint. I told you that you will be able to connect to this database using your database endpoint. So this is my database endpoint. So every database instance will have its own endpoint. So please make a note of it, and this is not going to change. So in case of EC2 instance, what used to happen is, when you when you have the IP addresses, if you stop and restart, or if you create a new EC2 instances, or if you modify something on that instance, I mean, if you change the state of an instance, what used to happen, the IP address of that instance used to get changed. But here in this case, even if you stop and restart, this endpoint will be same. Okay, and this is our port 3306. This is the default port, and this is our VPC, and this is our subnet group that we created. These are the subnets we added, and this is my VPC security group, right? So it was created just now, and if you see the replication, all these things are we configured, everything is here. If you go over here, monitoring, so we did not select detailed monitoring. So even if you do not select detailed monitoring, you will get the CPU utilization details, what is the current state, what is the free space available, what is the IOPS, read write IOPS, free memory, all these things you will get under monitoring section. So logs and events, basically, let me close this one. So this will write all the logs, for your instance, a database instance that you created. So what happened behind the scenes, all the logs will be here under logs and events. Next, the configuration, whatever the configuration that you selected, everything will be here. So this is our database instance ID, and this is our database class. We selected t2.micro, and if you see, this is the RAM, this is a vCPU, engine version, and this is the initial database that we created, RDS-DB. So we spoke about that also, right? The storage is 20 GB. All these things you will get it under your configuration section here. Okay, so you will get to see all of this in here. Okay, next is maintenance and backup. So we will be seeing about this in the next classes, as I did not go with automated backups. I disabled it one, so that is what it is showing here. Snapshots, it will be here. So if you want, you can take a snapshot, and that snapshot will be appearing here. Okay, tags, if you added any tags, it will be appearing here. Okay, so these are the details about your RDS instance, how to create RDS instance, and what are the details that you need to know. Okay, so I hope you understand how to create RDS instance in detail. Okay.